Actually, it's Joe Tillman's creation. He's a exceptional photographer here at Channel 10, so he put it together.
And
it's really clips of Rick Davis and I who went out and covered the verdict.
Well, what I loved about watching you, because you shot the intro a little earlier today.
Mm-hmm.
I loved that it starts dark, and then the lights go up. I mean, Joe Tillman is a very talented photographer.
He is.
He's
He's
very
really
creative,
great. He's
and
fun
just
to work
watching
with.
all of this unfold. So he gave me a couple of clips. So do you know what those are?
You know, I think these are stories from when I covered the verdict in 1995, October of 1995. So we're going back 21 years.
Did you fight to cover this, or was this? Were you
No,
just sent out?
the news director at the time, Bill Barra, came up to me in the newsroom and said, "Hook, I need you to get on a flight. You're going to OJ's verdict."
And were you like, "This
And
is
that
going to be
was-
chaos"?
I thought it would be chaos. Is it okay to turn this down? I'm hearing something here.
Are you hearing the chime?
Yeah, I'm hearing a monitor.
I think
There
it's
we
here.
go.
Yeah.
I knew it would be chaos, and I also felt it would be a not guilty verdict because
Why?
because the jury only deliberated for 4 hours.
That is a little concerning.
It was an hour. It was a year-long trial that a jury with all that evidence and DNA evidence and testimony, they concluded. I mean, they reached their verdict in 4 hours. I'm like, well, I don't think they've got it.
Yeah.
There would have been at least some discussion, right, over certain
You
things,
want
and it
to
would
see
have.
some evidence again?
No,
And,
they went in that jury room. They knew exactly what they were going to do.
well, and I also heard that one of them said later on, "I just wanted to go home."
I think they did. Lancito let it go way too long. It should have been done in a month.
And tell me, covering it, or just watching the way the media covered it, the mainstream media covered it back then was very different. But watching it from Phoenix, being an anchor in Phoenix, did you feel like it was over the top, or did you expect it with the entertainment aspect of the trial?
It was over the top.
Really?
And I expected it to be. But being out in front of the courthouse when the verdict was read, we were in a compound that was a chain link fence compound outside of the LA County Courthouse. And right before the verdict, probably about 30 minutes, maybe an hour before the verdict, they came around and they brought in huge chains and chained us into this compound.
What?
And I looked at Rick Davis, African-American photographer here at Channel 10. He and I went together, which was an interesting dynamic.
Right.
You got a white boy and an African-American boy out there, right?
Yeah.
So we're out there scrambling, trying to find, as best we could find it, the truth. But Rick and I looked at each other and we said, there's going to be trouble.
I mean, that's like very similar to the corral of Clinton. Remember Clinton corralled the media not too long ago?
Yeah, right.
That sounds very similar to that. Yeah,
No,
so-
Rick and I had an incredible time. It was great to be out there together because we went to South Central together and got reaction to the verdict in South Central, which was really interesting. And it was great to have that perspective of two guys, one African American, one white guy, and with all the racial divide over the trial, it was really it was a great idea actually to do it that way, and it was really cool.
What was Phoenix's perception of the trial? Was it I think I told you when I was like 10 years old, and I remember being on the beach in Destin, Florida, and people with their little black and white TVs on the beach watching that verdict. Was it a big deal in Phoenix? Was it what everyone was talking about?
It was a big deal nationwide. People watched it. Our station during that period of time, during the trial period, we did not have a network. We had left CBS. We had not become Fox yet. We didn't have any programming yet. So we went through a period where we had no programming. We ran the trial wall to wall every day.
What?
Yes, every day.
That sounds like my kind of station.
Yeah, we ran it wall to wall because we didn't have anything better going on.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I was looking up something for you and I got it wrong, but they said that the trial was only 135 days aired on TV versus the year that it actually.
Yeah.
So why was do you know why certain aspects of the trial weren't aired on TV?
I'm not sure. I thought all of it was aired pretty much.
But it got so muddy.
Because there was a fight over cameras in the courtroom, and Ito decided early on, we're going to let the public see this.
But it did seem, if you're watching FX's The People versus OJ Simpson, so many different aspects. These tapes where Mark Furman, they proved that Mark Furman lied on the stand through these tapes, and just so many different aspects that they had to have been so exhausted towards the end of that. And how accurate, actually having lived it, How accurate is the show versus the actual trial?
It's hard to know because we weren't on the inside like that. We weren't privy to anything the attorneys were doing. I can tell you the portrayals. Probably my least favorite actually is John Travolta, because I interviewed Robert Shapiro about a month after the trial, maybe 2 months after the trial. And Shapiro is a guy with tremendous command. When he comes in a room, he's got gravitas, whether you agree with his lawyering in this case or not. And Travolta plays him as almost an effeminate kind of guy. He's not like that at all. So
Just over-the-top character.
Yeah, the portrayal of Shapiro is the one that I find the most perplexing. The rest of them, to be very honest, I mean, I'm watching it. I'm watching every episode. If the woman who plays Marcia Clark doesn't win an Emmy for this performance,
she's amazing.
Something is wrong.
And she's a smoker now because of that show. She's a chain smoker
She
now because
is
of that show.
channeling Marcia Clark
So
like
much.
nobody's business. The person playing Chris Darden is amazing.
Oh, I love him.
Amazing.
Sterling. His name is Sterling
He
something.
looks like him.
So
He
great.
sounds like him.
Did you know that actual Christopher Darden said he felt like they should have consulted him and paid him?
I'm sure. There's money to be made.
Yeah, he said
There's
that they
money to
should
be
have
made.
consulted him, and he felt like they should have paid him. Kato Kalin also came out and said that he thought that Travolta was a horrible Shapiro. But I just
Oh, he did. He did say
yeah.
that. Well, good.
Yeah.
I'm getting some backing.
But I was like, Kato, your best moments were actually on the stand. You were an actor
Right.
in Los Angeles, and your best moments
Right.
were on the stand of the OJ Simpson trial. But I don't want to take up too much of your time. But
No, it's fine.
tell me, I loved you put something on your Facebook page. The last word Shapiro said to you, I thought that was so interesting.
When I interviewed Robert Shapiro, the part about him that impressed me the most, I don't know if you guys remember when OJ made his initial appearance. He had been through the Bronco chase. He had either been going to commit suicide or to flee. Mm-hmm. He looked incredibly guilty. It looked overwhelming. And that day in court, OJ's standing there, and Shapiro was rubbing his back in court. And I thought, this is a guy who really cares about his client.
Clients, yeah.
And I'm watching this, and he's trying to calm OJ down. OJ's incredibly agitated. And I watched that, and I thought, that's a guy, if you were really in trouble, that you would want on your side. Mm-hmm. Because he showed a lot of compassion to his client. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
And it was genuine, I felt. And so at the end of my interview with Shapiro, we were walking out of Channel 10, and I said, Bob, if I ever get in any real serious trouble, I would want you to represent me.
Aww.
And he turned around and he said, just remember, John, I represent innocent people too. But off camera.
Yeah.
There's no record of it, right? Because we had stopped filming at that point, stopped taping.
So interesting.
But he made a point of saying that because he was disgusted at the end, even though the miniseries points to him being the seeds of the race card.
Right. Well,
The word I got, and that he told me, he was disgusted by how it played out, that so much of it was about race. It really bothered him.
yeah, it does seem in the FX series that he starts to have doubts, that he realizes it's gotten out of hand.
And I think in his own community, in the Jewish community, I think he was getting a lot of blowback. People were saying, look what you're creating here.
Yeah.
You're opening up the Rodney King divide again. You're exploiting what we've already been through in this town that's been burned. You know, South Central LA, a lot of it was burned to the ground in the riots after Rodney King was beaten on tape. So I think people felt that they were exploiting that to the detriment of the city and its overall well-being.
And how many people stuck by OJ after that happened? Because Johnny Cochran, I feel like, is Johnny Cochran the only one that stayed positive about him? I know on his deathbed, Rob Kardashian did not want to speak to OJ. OJ tried to call and
No
talk to
kidding.
him.
That I did not know.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
And then so it doesn't seem like Shapiro has kept in positive contact with him. So I'm wondering.
No, I think Robert
anybody-
Shapiro was turned off by the end. They needed to win, and as lawyers do, and as men do, you try to win at all costs. Mm-hmm. And they felt that this was a career. This would make their career.
No.
This was a case of a lifetime for all of these people.
It would have been so humiliating, if they. Well, I mean, they think that they were expecting to lose, but they were the dream team.
Right. The part of the story that I haven't told a lot because it's kind of off base a bit, but I wanted to let you guys know is that unlike the rest of America, I didn't watch this day by day when it started. I was flying to Hawaii the day the murder happened.
Wow.
I got to the airport in LA after flying from Phoenix to LA. I pick up a newspaper, right? This is before the internet. And there's a little blurb about OJ Simpson's wife being found murdered outside of her home in
Brentwood.
yeah. And I was like, wow, that's really odd and it's sad.
That's
and
awful.
Then I get on the plane, and when you would go to Hawaii at that point, you were cut off from the world, largely.
I don't know what
You'd get a little newsletter at breakfast, and that had... I wasn't paying any attention.
Crossword puzzles.
So all of a sudden, that Friday, after being there a week, that Friday I'm coming back from a beach and bodyboarding, and I'm in a rental car, and
Likely
I turn on the
very
radio.
tan. Likely very
yes. I turn on the radio, and they're talking about OJ Simpson is on the run in a white Ford Bronco.
Oh my goodness.
I didn't take steps 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I went from wife murdered to OJ's on the run, and I'm going, whoa, wait a minute. He killed her? I didn't get all the lead up.
Right.
I didn't get the funeral. I didn't get the OJ in cuffs. I got none of that.
Because we didn't hear about OJ being, Nicole being abused by OJ Simpson.
Right. Nobody knew that part.
And how did we...
He was a beloved figure.
Before TMZ mentality.
Exactly.
You could not get away with that today.
No,
we
you
would have
couldn't.
immediately jumped to the conclusion of OJ. Had we heard the 911 tapes that were inevitably leaked.
Weren't people jumping to that conclusion back then, even days after, like something's up?
They were.
I didn't have that luxury.
Yeah, they were, but but we would have known about them when they happened. I think we would have, as a society, been more protective of her. She would have already been on a Real Housewives of Beverly Hills show. She would have
Right.
already had her own brand by now. That's just how today's society works versus, back then. Now it's salacious and the kind of like just trash rags. We turn them into reality shows.
And this wouldn't have been hidden.
Yeah.
But for me, the leap of logic was so great. I went from his wife or ex-wife being murdered to all of a sudden, he's the guy who did it. And I had no steps in between.
And were you a fan? So
Yeah. I mean, I grew up with him.
Wow.
When he ran for 2,003 yards and broke the record.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a big deal when I was growing up and a hero. And he was a San Francisco kid. So for me, growing up in the Bay Area, this guy was an icon.
Wow.
Even though he played his football in Buffalo and went to USC. But so for me, it was just a mind blower. I'm thinking, OJ Simpson did this and he's on the run from the law. I couldn't process it.
I'm sure that was crazy. And did you ever imagine it would become... I mean, it's hard. I hate saying I really enjoy the show. I do really enjoy the show. But you think about Ron Goldman, who... is he still... I mean, I think their family's still here.
Yeah, I think Fred is still here.
Ron Goldman's family and Nicole's family. Those people... These are real human beings to them.
That's right.
And we're excited every week to sit in front of our televisions and watch this unfold. But this is just, tearing at their hearts probably to have to relive it and to watch these people recreate it. It's such a difficult thing to grasp, and it almost makes you feel guilty to turn on the TV.
Fred, I've talked to him several times, and the pain of losing his son is right under the surface at all times. It's always there.
That's so horrible.
It's always there. And I think, imagine for him when he heard about this murder, right? And then to think that his son somehow walked in on this thing unwittingly.
Yeah.
And gets caught up in this.
Well, and what I've always thought about was so sad about that is he said he heard about the murder. It was just OJ's wife that was murdered and somebody else. Just overhearing it on the news. And then to get the phone call that other person... I mean, how do you digest the fact that there is this huge story that you've taken in bits and pieces, and you don't realize how personally invested you are, or you're going to be.
Right. I talked to him one time. He told me a story. He related a story to me about he and Kim, his daughter. They were driving around somewhere with Kim's, I believe, son. And he said, we were kicking around the ideas of what to send OJ in the prison in Nevada. They were very happy that he had been incarcerated. They felt like it was karma and it was justice. And they were settling on, do we send him a card? What do we do? And the little kid in the back seat in his car seat said, yeah, do that. They go, okay, that's what we're going to do. So they sent him what he described to me as a housewarming card. Said, OJ, welcome to your new home. just like you would send somebody if they purchased a home.
Wow.
They were kind of sticking it to him.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure OJ got it.
Wow. Okay, so should we watch these?
Sure, and then I'll explain. This is this the first one?
Yes.
Okay, this is verdict day. This would have been October 3rd.
The jury in the above entitled action find the defendant Orenthal James Simpson not guilty of the crime of murder.
The verdict brings shouts of joy from the throng gathered outside the courthouse. But what led the jury down this path on its journey toward justice? Outside the court building, it depends on who you ask and often what color they are.
I don't know what kind of a message this was, other than, maybe it was a race issue. It's hard to say. I hate to think it was, but standing out here on the streets today, all we've heard is racism, both ways.
There's no question, by gauging the crowd's reaction to police, there's a deep-seated mistrust of police in Los Angeles. Many believe this verdict sends a message.
You know, they have to take a stand right now, because if they didn't take a stand, this could continue to, to go on, for centuries and years.
A message was sent.
Yeah, a message was sent.
How far and how far-reaching it's going to hit home, I don't know. But I'm sure they got some kind of message out of this, don't you?
Others, mostly whites outside the courthouse, find it objectionable that a jury might have been impacted by the issue of race.
It wouldn't be the first time a jury gets it wrong, will it? Certainly there was a lot of pressure. It's almost reverse racism. It's going to cause more tensions, and I think we're setting a precedent for future trials. I mean, what does it take to convict somebody in L.A.?
The verdict raises another troubling question.
Does a real killer ought to be able to be found?
If OJ Simpson didn't commit these murders, who did?
I mean, that's such a good ending. Here, I got it.
Well, we got, we got a sample. You got a sense of the racial divide right outside of the courthouse.
Yeah. So when she was talking about, does it set a precedent of what it takes to get convicted of murder in L.A., did it? I mean, do you think it changed anything?
I think what it did is it just showed the racial divide in L.A., and I think what she was seeing was absolutely guilty. How could you not see this? Mm-hmm. And what white people aren't seeing when they watch this is that for African Americans and what they perceive as over-the-top policing at that time in LA, they're saying, we don't care about OJ. You need to send a message to these cops to stop doing this stuff. Ugh. So to them, that was way more important than OJ's guilt or innocence, was that a message be sent to the cops to cool it. That's what it was about.
How heartbreaking for the families of the victims' families, though, that they had to get.
Yeah, and I think the documentary or the show on FX shows it very well early on when they were deciding where to try the case, and they decided to try it in downtown Los Angeles. Right then, the jury pool they were going to get probably skewed toward the defense's side right then.
Yeah.
Had they tried it out inland, you might have been guilty, as it was for the civil trial.
All right, so do you know what the next video is?
Let me see the first tile. Oh, this is live in LA, yeah.
How cool is this? Let me just switch up screens.
I think that's the night of the verdict. That night after we had been all over the place.
Okay.
Well, June, it's particularly interesting, the reaction here in Los Angeles to what the jurors are saying. The reaction's as diverse as a city of 3.5 million. On talk radio, it was topic 1 today.
After 3 o'clock, continuing the day after with your reaction. D and Simi Valley, you're on KFI.
People angry with the verdict are still trying to see through what prosecutor Christopher Darden called the smoke.
I have my suspicions. Sure, I have my suspicions about the prosecution. But I saw overwhelming evidence to put O.J. in jail, despite my suspicions about the prosecution.
Debate over the verdict raged on in Brentwood, along South Bundy Drive.
I think race played a big part.
This man felt compelled to visit the murder scene today.
I guess I wanted to get the vibe from it. It feels really, really haunted.
You had to see this.
Yeah, I really did, and I lived.
The crime scene at Bundy, now an eerie shrine to the victims of one of the most notorious murders in U.S. history. Carlene Pananzi, an attorney from Miami, also felt the need to be here.
Well, I just felt that it's such an important trial.
Pananzi is a defense attorney. She believes there may be justice beyond the doors of the courtroom.
If he did it, he's going to have to live with himself for the rest of his life, and he's going to have to face his children. And if he didn't do it, well, then I'm happy he's free.
Yes, Mark Furman's a terrible racist, but because you're a terrible racist, and because the LAPD might have screwed up the evidence, does that mean that OJ didn't kill Ron and Nicole?
OJ Simpson may be home in Brentwood, but he's hardly free. He's gone from one type of jail to another, now held captive by the horde of media outside his Rockingham estate, unable to enjoy the fresh air because of the constant vigilance overhead.
Bob and June, it's so interesting to look back a year and a half ago when O.J. Simpson wrote that prophetic letter before the slow-speed chase on that Los Angeles freeway, in which he said, people will always point and ask questions. That is precisely the reality O.J. Simpson is living with tonight in Brentwood. But as far as O.J. Simpson's future, we're told that he is pondering it very seriously about business deals, lucrative offers, perhaps a pay-per-view special, complete with entertainment to tell his story. Book deals, lucrative tabloid offers, all things O.J. Simpson's considering tonight.
All kinds of rumors out there, including going back to sports broadcasting. Have you heard about that?
Well, there are rumors to that effect that there may be a serious offer from broadcasting, perhaps from other manufacturers. We'll have to wait and see. O.J. Simpson's story still unfolding here in Los Angeles.
And the opinions as thick as that smog behind you.
Yeah. Nice segue for the smog.
A lot of smog. Yeah, so, as it turned out, OJ was a pariah. Nobody wanted to touch him after this.
Right, he did write If I Did It, which was an unfortunate career move. But, the Goldmans actually they receive anything made off of that, correct?
I think so, because of the
trial?
judgment. Yeah, which was 30-some million, I think, or 23-something million. It was a lot of money.
We were talking about that earlier, how they could have really expanded this FX show. There was opportunity to do more. They're going to go into Hurricane Katrina with the next season, but the civil trial is even more fascinating because that's when OJ actually talks.
He did. He was deposed.
Yeah, and his posture, just how he'd run in circles. Did you hit Nicole? Yeah, maybe I hit Nicole. Did you put the bruises around her neck? I never laid a hand on Nicole. It was just so fascinating to watch him actually have to talk about it and how resentful he was that he had to be there.
You've seen that deposition then?
Yeah.
You've watched it?
Yeah, and then Fred, Fred was in the room at the same table with him as he's being asked all these questions. And another thing that kills me, and I wish that they would have gone more into this on the show, but whatever, Ron had so many defensive wounds on his body, and he was trained with some type of, I can't remember, it's some martial arts. He was trained in a specific way, and they can show you that he tried to utilize that.
Tried to fend him off.
And those are the wounds on his body.
That was one of the things when you go to Bundy, the crime scene, and it's now changed. They've really tried to block the entrance so that you can't see it. But when we were there, and I was there twice actually. The second time in 2000 for the the Democratic Convention, I went back and it had been really altered. But during that time, a year after the murders, the courtyard where Ron was, Rick Davis and I both, my photographer, we were both taken aback by how small that courtyard was where Ron Goldman was. And we looked at each other and I said, he was like a trapped animal in there. It is tiny. I mean, tiny, maybe 10 feet by 12 feet. It's like a room more than a courtyard. And if he's in there and somebody has a knife, he had nowhere to go and nowhere to escape.
Sad.
And you could see where he ended up in the situation he ended up in once he was there.
Right. Okay, now do you know what we're watching here? Or is this the same as number one?
This looks like a little bit of this is a little different cast of characters.
Oh, wow.
This may have been right after the verdict, actually.
Okay, let's take a look.
This is the reaction outside of the courthouse, and we're standing right there shooting this.
Outside the criminal courts building, most celebrated the verdict. Some looked on in stunned disbelief.
I was shocked, disappointed.
disappointed. You know, I felt really bad for Nicole's parents and Ron's parents and their families. They've gone through so much, and then to hear that he's guilty, I mean, it must have been terrible, terrible.
Was this about evidence, or do you think the jury was sending a message to the LA police?
I believe it was about evidence. I don't believe as much it was about a message being sent to the police, because I believe Johnny Cochran raised many reasonable doubts in the mind of the jury. I know he raised some in my mind.
The court of public opinion outside the criminal courts building in Los Angeles divided over what this verdict means. Does it mean the jury was sending a message to LA police and racist cops, or does it mean that the state did not meet the burden of proof in this case?
I think there was a message to them that, you know, they can't keep on doing the things that they did in the past.
Los Angeles police were on a tactical alert just in case of trouble. Police arrested one man, but aside from some angry words directed at officers, the crowd kept its cool. This couple, students at NAU, drove all night from Flagstaff to witness history, LA style.
This is going to be something that everybody's going to remember.
It's a memorable event.
Some call the Simpson trial a perversion of justice. Some see it as a day of reckoning in a city polarized by racial tensions. Others see it as the resurrection of a legend.
Juice is loose. He's loose.
Did he ever escape a tackle this difficult in football?
OJ didn't fumble 4 times in his career. He gonna drop a glove, another glove, a hat, sock. That's not OJ. He don't fumble.
Wow.
That kind of shows you the, whites saw this completely differently.
Wow. Well, I was just telling you that is a great package. I would upload that because it's going to be big tonight.
I don't know if I'll have time.
I know, because I've kept you. You have to go.
Okay.
You've got a real life to
It's
get
all right.
to.
It's interesting to relive it and think back on that.
You've got a greatest hits though coming tonight at 9. You're going to go.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
you.
And
Rick Davis sitting down discussing some of the behind the scenes, how you got some of those. I mean, just how you got some of those shots is really creative.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I won't give anything away.
Okay.
But tonight at 9, people can
9
watch
o'clock,
it.
yeah.
If you're online, foxtonphoenix.com/live. And if you're local, you have to turn on Channel 10.
It's a great plug. Thank you for having me out.
This is what I do.
It was an experience. I'll never forget it.
And that's why I love to pick your brain. You've seen things. You've seen the world.
I've been very fortunate in that regard to see a lot of really interesting stuff, a lot of history. It's cool. And this one was, I can't describe to you how polarized that city was over this stuff.
Well, do you think, and I will let you go, but when you look at Ferguson, when you look at some of these cities that
Same issue.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was
It's the
thinking
same issue replaying itself over and over and over.
So sad.
In some regards, I feel like we've come so far. We've elected the first African-American president. We really have made strides. But I'll tell you, when those things happen, you look and you say, man, are we spinning our wheels? Are we making progress?
Right.
Because these feelings are still there.
Absolutely.
That cops are not treating blacks equally as whites. That they're being mistreated. And that feeling's out there in the black community, no doubt about it.
All right, well, you have a job to do.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm actually going to go watch that video again because I think Ted Cruz is with that lady.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
See you, Kenzie.
All right, you can watch John Hook more on the OJ Simpson trial and his experience during our 9 o'clock broadcast, and I'm not kidding about the Ted Cruz thing. Oh no, that's not Ted Cruz, but I thought it was. Because he was an attorney. See, it was just like for just a second when he moved, I was like, is that Ted Cruz?
The need to be here.
Well, I just felt that it was